Thank you, Secretary Trujillo, and thank you, Governor, for joining us here today. I also want to take a moment to thank First Lady Nez and Navajo Nation Council Delegate Crotty for being here and joining us. They have been engaged in the task force for the last 2 years and understand, I think, better than anyone, the urgent need for action, the urgent need for our community and leaders in law enforcement to elevate this issue to where it belongs. I think Secretary Trujillo really spoke to the injustice, the indifference that has plagued Indian communities, Native communities for far too long. This is an epidemic in terms of the loss of women and of missing and murdered Indigenous women, not only in New Mexico but across the country. And while this is only a small step in the right direction, it's a critical step for us to try and advance this work. I also want to thank the All Pueblo Council of Governors for their endorsement, and a special thank you to former Cochiti Pueblo Governor Regis Pecos for helping my team to understand what tools and resources could be brought to bear as we seek to try and turn the tide in this epidemic of violence. The governor has exhibited extraordinary leadership on this issue, beginning with the signing of the executive order and the creation of the task force nearly 2 years ago. But it's time for us to engage in the hard and deliberate work of solving these crimes, of finding these lost women and understanding what happened to them. They are entitled to dignity, and their families are entitled to our very best efforts to try and understand what has occurred. In that regard, my office today, in the signing of this MOU, is proud to put forward 2 concrete steps that we think will help advance the cause of trying to find justice for these families. The first is the creation of a dedicated MMIW working group and unit inside what is called the Crime Strategies Unit inside the District Attorney's Office. We have already dedicated one analyst who will be looking at historical crime data to try and understand the historical patterns related to human trafficking and the intersection between the movement of these women out of Indian country and into Bernalillo County and the streets of Albuquerque. We are hiring a dedicated investigator to assist in that regard, and also dedicating members of our victim advocacy staff. In addition, we have submitted a special appropriation request for the upcoming legislative session, seeking to hire 2 additional full-time investigators who would spend all of their time, energy, and effort going back historically into these records and trying to understand and piece together the story of these women. In addition, the Office of the District Attorney has spent the last several years investing in our analytical capacity, in our data gathering and data integration capacity, primarily with an emphasis on trying to reduce the problem of gun violence and gun-related homicides on the streets of Albuquerque. And through that experience, we have gained invaluable insights into the siloed nature of the information that is currently housed in different jurisdictions and in different law enforcement agencies. We've been actively engaged in trying to integrate the data that's made available to the Department of Public Safety. And so based on that technological expertise and the platforms we've developed, we are going to dedicate resources in our office to trying to break down the silos that currently hamper real-time investigations. Right now, in this community and in this state, we can have a woman in Indian country disappear from the streets, and that initial report be made to a local tribal agency or to a local federal agency. That individual, that young girl, could then be found or have contact with law enforcement, perhaps in Santa Fe and perhaps in Doña Ana County, and then once again come into contact with law enforcement here in Albuquerque. And right now, I can tell you that each of the agencies that I just described, they maintain siloed recording and record-keeping information systems. So we can't actively see in real time where those reports and where that contact is being made with law enforcement. And it is that goal, that objective, to try and build a platform so we can have real-time information sharing. In my office and in my capacity as district attorney, I'm so frustrated. Oftentimes we are brought in to investigate these issues and these cases years after an initial report has been filed with a local law enforcement agency, and months after a subsequent agency has had contact with that information. We need to dedicate the same level of attention and resources to the women of Indian country that we do to all women in this country. And the key to doing that is sharing information with law enforcement professionals in real time, within hours or days of the event, because that's how you recover these lost women and that's how you prevent violent crime. This is an important step, but just the first step. I am extraordinarily proud of the work that we've been able to do with the task force, and hope we get to work together to kind of comprehensively approach this problem and understand not only the institutional barriers inside of law enforcement, but the cultural barriers oftentimes that prevent us from effectively communicating with one another. And one of the first things that I will do is work with the Indian Affairs Department and the members and leaders in the tribal communities to go community by community, trying to understand what systems and resources are in place, how we can break down the barriers to sharing information so we can bring these women home. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your engagement and leadership. And now I would like to turn it over to Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham.